And now, the West Lafayette Mayoral Forum on News Channel 18. News from where you live.
Good evening and welcome to News Channel 18's West Lafayette Mayoral Candidate Forum. I'm Gina Quattrochi and I will be your moderator this evening. During the next half hour, you will meet the two candidates running for mayor of West Lafayette. They are Republican incumbent John Dennis and Democratic challenger John Polis. Our three panelists will ask questions of the candidates. They are Jeff Smith of WLFI, Mike Lewitzo of WBAA Radio, and Dave Bangert of the Journal and Courier. Tonight's forum is also streaming live on WLFI.com. Candidates will receive 2 minutes for opening and closing statements. The first candidate to answer a question will have 1 minute to answer. The other candidate will have 1 minute to respond. We flipped a coin before the show to find out who would be going first. Mayor Dennis won the coin toss and has chosen to go second. Mr. Polis, your opening statement.
Well, good evening. I'm very pleased to be here and thank you for inviting us. What? We're not on?
Yes, your opening statement, sir. You have a minute for that.
A little bit about my background. I'm from Lafayette, West Lafayette. I lived there 20 years after retiring from the military. I spent 25 years in the United States Army and coming from a very apolitical background, which is by design and by tradition. So finding myself here this evening talking to you about politics is a little bit of a different kind of venture for me. But it's all about the one thing that has guided my entire career and my life, basically, is service. And 25 years in the Army was service to my country. And for the last 20 years here in Lafayette, West Lafayette, I had a chance to serve my community and serve my church. So when Mayor Marjoram and Councilor Hunt came to see me last January and asked me to consider running for mayor of West Lafayette, they had those two buttons to push. The first button being, this is a chance for me to serve my community in a much more direct and impactful way. And the second button was that I had the credentials and the qualifications to be the mayor of West Lafayette. Primarily my leadership skills, which come from 25 years in the military, where I had 3 separate commands to include 1 command in combat. So combine those two opportunities, I did be back in the leadership role and also serve my community, made it very hard to resist throwing my hat into the ring, as it were. And so tonight I am here to address you as the challenger for the mayoral seat of West Lafayette.
Mr. Polis, thank you. Mayor Dennis, your 2 minutes for your opening statement, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Gina, and thank you, panelists, for inviting us here this evening. There's going to be 3 major themes that we're going to be discussing this evening. First one is building partnerships. I feel that in my tenure as mayor that I've had a great deal of success in building partnerships with our school corporation, with other forms of local government, with our state government, with our neighborhoods, and of course with Purdue University. When we talk about Purdue University, we have to mention the fact that in my tenure there's been 48 new companies investing in our community. About 260 new jobs have been added to our community. Some of the companies are not only national but internationally known: Hewlett-Packard, Dow, Cornerstone Autism, and the Deering Group. I also am very focused on watching your money. Every budget I've filed has been a lower budget. We focus on cost reduction and cost recovery. We have a philosophy in the city of West Lafayette now that's called all hands on deck. We look at all opportunities to try and save our taxpayers and our citizens money. We've changed the spending philosophy in the city of West Lafayette. That last dollar line item on the budget is not what you have to spend, it's what you have to save, and the department heads have been directed to do so. We have been combining services, we have been sharing resources, and our department heads communicate openly to make sure that we can provide the best quality service to our citizens. The third tenet is going to be quality of life. We have one of the lowest crime rates of any Big Ten city in the country. We have improved facilities in our community, and we're looking very forward to our new fire station. We have a new interest and a new investment in healthcare in the city of West Lafayette, starting with ambulance service in my first year and now with the healthcare facility. And also, we cannot say enough positive about our parks and trails. We feel that we're definitely on the right track. We feel very empowered by what we've been doing, and we are excited and enthusiastic about continuing our success.
Mayor Dennis, thank you. Our first question this evening will go to Mr. John Polis.
Gentlemen, thanks so much for coming in tonight. I'd appreciate it. The West Lafayette City Council has given its approval to Wong Hall, a four-story building on the east side of Northwestern Avenue by the Purdue Research Foundation. Few people in the New Chauncey neighborhood who spoke on that project actually approved of it. Another project nearby called Boiler Crib would be a 6-story development. What's your strategy for satisfying both the needs of Purdue University and neighborhoods in West Lafayette?
I think the strategy can be twofold. I think every project can be a win-win, and it's a trite expression. But the point is that you have two major concerns for the mayor, for the city administration. One is increasing our tax base, that's where our revenue comes from. And one of them is maintaining and enhancing our neighborhoods. The neighborhoods are what makes West Lafayette, West Lafayette. So when you have these projects being proposed, the administration must be very proactive and engage very early on, bring the power of the mayor's office and the rest of the administration to bear to allow us to negotiate with the developers that, okay, we can have these planned developments. They are zoned for that. At the same time, we need to have a give back to the city in enhancing the neighborhoods that surround these developments.
Mayor Dennis, your response?
Wang Hall is a great success story. When you talk about bringing in an interest that's going to provide for both the community, the university, and our tax base, Wang Hall is exactly that. When I was made aware of this development potential years ago, I thought the first thing we need to do is we need to engage our neighborhoods. We need to engage them early on. And I have to thank the leadership of the Research Park and the leadership of the New Chauncey neighborhood for their involvement. They had tireless meetings in which they had continuous conversations to try and make sure that the product that they end up with is a product that can be acceptable both on the part of the near campus neighborhoods as well as to the city. And I believe that they've done an excellent job in doing so. The new Munzer development is going to follow the same path. When they originally approached my office, they had an idea of a 15-story complex going in there, and I told them there's absolutely no way that's going to happen. They realize the importance of making sure that the neighborhoods are going to be satisfied, that the quality of life in the neighborhoods are not going to be blemished, and the reality of trying to bring the students out of the neighborhoods into an area that's going to be near campus is something that can be valued.
Thank you, Mayor Dennis. That's time on that question.
Okay,
Next question be directed to Mayor John Dennis.
Do you think the city's current code enforcement efforts are responding to citizens' needs, and what, if anything, would you like to change?
Absolutely. Early on in my administration, we felt and heard the voices of our community. There was a definite need for improved enforcement in the near campus areas and the near campus neighborhoods. At that time, I directed my police department to develop what I called the Neighborhood Resource Team, and it's exactly that. They are boots on the ground, and they are going and working proactively to try and solve those issues, those quality of life issues within our near campus areas. And obviously, their authority has been spread throughout the entire city. We handle thousands of calls every year dealing with quality of life issues. We've got many success stories about cleaning up abandoned properties, about improving the quality of life in our neighborhoods based upon complaints and based upon proactive work of our neighborhood resource team.
Mr. Polis, your response to that question.
Well, code enforcement, I believe, is required, but I think it has to be an even-handed approach, and this idea of partnership with the citizens and with enforcement people. But I think code enforcement goes beyond just the normal everyday ordinances, but also goes into the code enforcement. There are codes that pertain to the city, and these cannot be just overlooked or changed at will. And I really think that we need to have a lot better planning documents for our neighborhoods, area use plans that will maximize those neighborhoods, enhance those neighborhoods, protect those neighborhoods, and not resort to and basically use the code enforcement to maintain that.
Okay, Mr. Polis, thank you for your response to that question. And we will be back after a quick break for more of News Channel 18's West Lafayette Mayoral Candidate Forum. Stay with us. Channel 18's West Lafayette Mayoral Candidate Forum. Republican incumbent John Dennis and Democratic challenger John Polis will resume taking questions from our panel. Mr. Polis will now take our next question.
Mr. Polis, you talked about working with developers on commercial projects. A lot of commercial vacancies in West Lafayette right now between Smitty's and the Champion Center, and growing vacancy down at Wabash Landing. What's your plan to handle that, or do you even consider that part of the mayor's job?
Well, it's a good question from a standpoint is at what point does government get involved with private enterprise? I think developers, the mayor's office, the administration needs to be very proactive and bring in hopefully the right developers to do these properties, but then to stand back and let them develop. And I think Wabash Landing is a good example. It was a wonderful development. Now the fact there are empty places down there, that's a sign of economic times in a downturn. I would love to be involved in helping those developers find new tenants. I think you need to be kind of ear to the ground and more proactive and help line those tenants up in whatever manner the mayor's office can be used. But as far as that, interfering with private development, I think you be very careful with how much government gets involved.
Mayor Dennis, your response to that question.
Well, one of the best ways to experience development is to create an environment that encourages development. And when you talk about an encouraging development or encouraging environment, you talk about things like quality of life. You talk about areas where people feel that they're going to be able to have their business grow and prosper. And we feel very strongly that in the city of West Lafayette that we've been very, very fortunate to be able to provide that environment. Again, as I said earlier in my opening statement, you know, over 200 jobs have been brought to the research park, over 43 companies, and they're not just small companies, they're companies with international reputations. And the reason why they choose to come here is because of the quality of life in the city of West Lafayette. Now, quite clearly, our Director of Development is very involved in trying to recruit as well. Oftentimes when people ask about what the opportunities are in West Lafayette, they realize that they're great because of the relationship that we have with Purdue University. Thank you.
Mayor Dennis, thank you. The next question to be directed to Mayor John Dennis.
Mayor, how has the West Lafayette Police Department changed in your administration? When we get to Mr. Polis, how should it be structured under your administration, Mr. Mayor?
Well, one of the main reasons why I ran for office in my first term was because of the situation involving the West Lafayette Police Department. There has been a complete philosophical shift in how they do their job. In their old mentality, it was more of a street sweeping sort of approach to law enforcement. Now they are very much engaged in problem-oriented policing. They understand the reality of getting out of the cars, interacting positively with the citizens. They realize that biking to some of the games, working in some of the areas where the citizens are, will provide them positive benefits. They also understand that in this particular city, we are so fortunate to have a low crime rate, but we definitely have issues that can be resolved when it comes to quality of life issues. And with Chief Jason Domkowski and the very active and very involved police department, they've been able to do so.
Mr. Polis, your response to that question.
The police department right now is operating very efficiently, and the only change I would make if I were in mayor would be I'd like to see much more of a personal, close contact with the citizens. I think the bike patrols, I haven't seen one for quite a while. I guess they're still around, maybe, but we should reinstitute the bike patrols. I would like to see policemen in the village, out of their cars, and actually walking the beat, if you will, being much more engaged with the citizens, and not just on game night, but during the week, so the citizens can be much more in contact with their own local police force. I would also like to see the police force be much more in line with the apolitical background I come from. The police force, I think, needs to stay out of politics and just be the public servants that they're employed to be.
Mr. Polis, thank you. And the question to be directed to Mr. John Polis.
The city's Historic Preservation Commission is meeting to craft an ordinance guiding the city's efforts in historic preservation. What main points would you like to see in such an ordinance?
Well, in considering that debate, and I went to all those public hearings, I think that the point that came clear to me was that this ordinance is not to be feared. It's meant to be protective, and the presentation by the Lafayette group and their use of the preservation ordinance for about 10 years, and the number of actual no's that they got from citizens' requests should indicate to the citizens that this ordinance has a big upside and a very small downside. And I'd like to see that kind of tenor of things be maintained in West Lafayette, where the ordinance is in place to help improve and maintain our neighborhoods, at the same time not punish landlords for options that they have as far as making their properties more acceptable to the overall community.
Mayor Dennis, your response.
What an amazing community we have. We are so fortunate to have structures such as the Frank Lloyd Wright House, some of the amazing structures in Hills and Dales, all historically significant. They do need to be protected. But there also has to be an understanding of private property rights and owners' rights. The reason why I was supportive of the historic preservation ordinance was because I feel that that balance can be brought forward. They've done a great job in the city of Lafayette, but it took 18 years to evolve to that point where it's as functional as it is now. We actually have a meeting of that group this evening, and they're still in the process of crafting their own rules, their own regulations, trying to figure out how best to fit this ordinance to the city of West Lafayette. They understand that we've got on the south end of town a very historically significant district. They also understand that on the north end of town we've got rather new homes there. And the important thing is to design the districts so that they work, and also to make sure that the ordinance fits West Lafayette, because we are a very unique city.
Mayor Dennis, thank you. And we will be back after a final break for more of News Channel 18's West Lafayette Mayoral Candidate Forum. Stay with us.
From where you live.
Welcome back to News Channel 18's West Lafayette Mayoral Candidate Forum. Republican incumbent John Dennis and Democratic challenger John Polis will now resume taking questions from our panel. This is our final question of the evening. Mayor John Dennis, your question.
Mayor Dennis, you talked a little bit about the new fire station on the north end of town. Explain why that took so long to get going, and make your best case for it being the most cost-efficient way to go.
Well, I can't really explain why it took so long to get going. It generally does. When you try and plan a project like that, it's involved. You know, it's not just a matter of paying a developer and then having a project done like that. We were looking at ways to do it that would not get us into a situation where we'd have to bond it, and that also took some time as well. The fire station itself is going to be designed so that it will house all of our firefighters and house them safely. It will house the equipment and house it safely so they can also not only work on the equipment in the fire station, but also have a comfortable environment in which to stay. We held public hearings in regards to the location of the fire station. Very few people showed up. There was a few people that did show and established the fact that that was the location that they preferred.
Mayor Dennis, thank you. Mr. Polis, your response to that question.
I'm all for the third fire station. We have those two annexed divisions, subdivisions north of the city that need support. So having a new fire station's been talked about in the mill, I suppose, for over 4 years. The thing I'm concerned about is that we're not using any kind of competitive bidding. And I think that that's not the way that to get the best use of taxpayer money. Also, I'm concerned that we're shutting out local contractors and subcontractors. This project's been bid out to a firm out of Indianapolis, and I'm concerned that the head of the contracting firm in Indianapolis was the same one involved with the Tippecanoe County Library build a few years ago, and when he was fired from that position and sued in court. So I'm just concerned about the whole package.
Mr. Polis, thank you. Our time for questions has come to an end. It is now time for each candidate to deliver his closing remarks. 2 minutes for closing statements. We'll begin with Mr. John Polis.
The city of West Lafayette has benefited from decades of Democratic administrations where they were carefully using long-range planning, had the vision to put in motion operations that yielded things like Wabash Landing. I think we need to return to that. We need to return to the leadership that has not only the vision to see where we should be going, but the effort to make the long-range planning necessary to make that happen. We need a very proactive and engaged leadership in West Lafayette to avoid this marking time, because if you don't keep moving forward, you get stagnant. And so I hope to bring to that position of mayor that those two benefits, the idea of having the vision and necessary proactivity to make that vision into reality. If you don't prepare the battlefield in advance, you're going to lose the battle. And that's what needs to be done when you have a leader that has the vision to make the long-range planning to yield the reality of the plan.
Mr. Polis, thank you. Your closing statement, Mayor John Dennis.
Well, most people know that I've lived in this community almost all my life. And as part of living in this community all my life, I was very active in sports when I was a kid. And I remember one time when Coach Ernie Beck, as I was playing football, called me into his office, and he said, John, he said, you know, you need to do better blocking, you need to study your plays, you need to improve your speed, because I'm going to tell you how to improve yourself, so I'm going to tell you what to do. Last weekend I was at a West Lafayette football game, and between the first and second quarters I go upstairs to the press box to say hi to the media and some of the announcers, and who was in there but Coach Beck. Coach Beck walked up to me, he put his arm around me and says, John, I'm not going to tell you to do anything different. He said, I'm proud of you, and I'm proud of West Lafayette. And for me, there could not be a better validating statement. Coach Beck made it abundantly clear that we are on the right track, that we're doing the right thing, that we're providing quality services to this community, and we're doing it for the biggest bang for their buck. I love being the mayor of West Lafayette. I love being the mayor of my hometown. I could not be more proud to serve the citizens of this community. I feel we've had a great deal of success. I feel that we've done things that the people have told us that they want to do. We have reacted positively to their requests. We're not done yet. We don't judge ourselves in terms. We judge ourselves in accomplishments. And we're not done proving that we can accomplish more. Thank you very much.
Mayor John Dennis, thank you. And thank you both for participating in our West Lafayette Mayoral Candidate Forum this evening. To Mr. Mayor John Dennis and Mr. John Polis, we want to thank you, and thank you for watching News Channel 18's Candidate Forum for Mayor of West Lafayette. Be sure to cast your vote on Tuesday, November 8th. We also want to thank our panelists for being with us this evening, Mr. Jeff Smith from WLFI, Mike Lowitzo from WBAA, and Dave Bangert from the Journal and Courier. Make sure you watch this broadcast on WLFI.com. Make sure you go out and vote. To cast your vote on Tuesday, November 8th. To find voting locations and times, just log on to WLFI.com. From all of us at WLFI, thank you for watching. Good night.